This is the king of the kingdom, Matt Taven, and don't be a Melvin, and get into the wrestling epicenter.
You're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio, featuring the interactive interview, courtesy of WrestlingEpicenter.com. Welcome to Interactive Wrestling Radio, right here on WrestlingEpicenter.com. My name is James Walsh, and with me on this edition of Interactive Wrestling Radio, which will feature an exclusive interview with the one and only Matt Taven, to discuss the 16th anniversary pay-per-view. It's my partner in crime, Mr. Patrick Kelly. Mr. Patrick Kelly, are you there?
I am here, James. How have you been?
Been doing good. I figured since we got positive things to say about Ring of Honor and about the product that we're going to be promoting, we could do a little bit of a introduction for the 16th anniversary pay-per-view. Damn, we're getting old.
I know, man. I remember, God, the cool thing about Ring of Honor, and TNA too, I would throw them in there as well. They really helped fill the void left behind by WCW and ECW when both of those companies went away. And it was like, oh man, all we have is WWE. And I don't mean to, completely sound down on WWE, but wrestling's always better when you have more options. And Ring of Honor and TNA and various other companies kind of picked up the slack, and they've been around ever since. We're coming up on 16 years for Ring of Honor. So
I mean, there was a lot of attempts. There was a lot of attempts to recapture ECW by doing a virtual carbon copy of it, like MLW, which, ironically, that's going in a version of itself now, but it was gone for a long time. And like, 3PW that Jasmine St. Clair was running, and MECW, which did, I think, all of one show. I mean, maybe a couple others elsewhere, but one show at the ECW arena. You couldn't recreate the magic, and XWF was the attempt to recreate WCW, and you just can't do it. You can't capture magic in a bottle twice. What had to happen is you had to have two guys or another company, I'd prefer as many as possible, with their own unique flavor and stylings to, instead of trying to recreate what has already been, forge its own path. And we have seen Ring of Honor forge its own path. We've seen Impact Wrestling forge several paths. Never one solid direction.
Go ahead.
And never one solid direction for Impact Wrestling. They stop, start, and they come up with some great ideas, and then they pull back on it. And that's why they're in the rebuilding stage. But damn, everybody knows my loyalty lies with Impact Wrestling, because without it, I probably would not still be a wrestling fan. So I love my Impact Wrestling, but we all know that they've had their paths. And Ring of Honor has always been on one path, but I think they've realized what they need to do to be accessible to a mainstream audience, much the way that UFC did, by doing what they do, but taming down maybe a little bit and maybe making themselves a little bit more accessible. Would you agree?
Oh, I agree, absolutely. And Ring of Honor, if you look at the talents they've developed over the years, I mean, some of them have gone on to become some of the biggest stars in WWE right now, like the Sami Zayns and the Kevin Owens and the Daniel Bryans and those guys. But I think you and I were talking about it yesterday, where Ring of Honor in its older days was pretty much designed to appeal to the super hardcore wrestling fan. Guys like you and me will watch it. A lot of diehard internet-based wrestling fans will watch it, but it's not something I would imagine a bunch of regular people would go out of their way to see. And now you see it with the development of the television show and their deal with New Japan and the talent exchanges that they do, and the featuring of things like the Bullet Club, and they've got their own women's division now that they've got the tournament going on. They're really kind of broadening the spectrum of appeal that the brand could possibly have.
They figured out the formula that works for them, and they are using it, and they're matriculating the ball down the field yard by yard as opposed to going for the Hail Mary pass. And that's the best way to describe it, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's always been what they've been about. They've just been kind of like, look, we're not overly concerned with what WWE is doing. We're not overly concerned with what other companies are doing. We're just going to sit here and do our own thing. And good on them. They've lasted 16 years, so obviously they've done something right.
And they have done something right, because they can go to San Antonio and fill the place. They can go to Nashville and fill the place. They can go to Las Vegas and fill the place. Whereas,
Mm-hmm.
and again, as much as I love Impact, we all know that they struggle when they go outside of their comfort zone of Orlando.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, they've done well creating a buzz about the brand that there's enough people who are willing to exit their living rooms and head down to a venue to see the shows and pay to see that as well. So good for them.
Well, I
really
did attend
is...
a Ring of Honor show. I did attend a Ring of Honor show when I was up in New York for WrestleMania 29. That was one of the things that we made sure to do. It's like, we got to see the Ring of Honor show the night before Mania, and it was a blast.
The only thing I remember was your disgust at some dude being obsessed with Maria Kanellis's backside.
Yeah, he was like, it was really creepy. Like, there was this one guy in the front row that was like staring at her butt the entire time, and it was just weird. I'm like, I hope security like keeps an eye on that dude, because he might reach out and do something stupid. But nothing happened. I just thought it was weird that there's this one guy that just kept staring at her butt the entire time. It's like, look, I know she's hot. Like, Maria Kanellis, beautiful woman, got a great body. She was in Playboy for a reason. But come on.
And there's always a but.
Yeah. It's like, guys, let's not act like the cartoon wolves from the old MGM cartoons, please. Yeah, it's like you've seen a girl's butt before. I would like to believe that you've seen one before. It's like, come on.
Maybe in pictures, but never in person.
Even then.
not me. I'm talking about that guy. You know, of course, I'm married. I got kids, so I've seen the butt.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about this pay-per-view. Let's run down the card real quick, and then we got to get to the interview that everybody tuned in to hear.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, you want to go top to bottom to top? How do we want to do this?
Bottom to top and as quickly as possible.
Okay, Flip Gordon versus Hiromu Takahashi. That could be a good filler match. I like Takahashi a lot. I've seen him in New Japan. He's developed quite nicely.
Flip Gordon has become one of my favorite guys to watch on Ring of Honor. He really is a guy who's cut his teeth there. Another one of those stars that you're talking about that Ring of Honor found and is developing, and I think has money written on him.
Cool. Yeah, I think that'll be a nice kind of. It's like the rug in the Big Lebowski. It'll tie the room together very nicely. It's one of those type of matches. Fills out the card very well. Then for the Ring of Honor 6-man Tag Team Championship, we have a Las Vegas street fight. The Hung Bucks, Adam Page, Matt Jackson, and Nick Jackson, defending
awesome
the
name,
titles
by
against
the way.
Say what?
Awesome name, by the way. The Hung Bucks.
Oh, the Hung Bucks? Yeah, I like that too. Versus SoCal Uncensored, Christopher Daniels, Frankie Kazarian, and Scorpio Sky. I did not know that Scorpio Sky was still wrestling until a few weeks ago. So it was like, oh, cool, he's still around.
Incredibly talented. All 6 guys incredibly talented, all on different stages of their careers. Man, that could be a great match.
That could be a show stealer, and I wasn't too high on the Young Bucks before. They've really won me over, and I think part of it is because they're the great entrepreneurs of the wrestling business. They are just masters at marketing themselves, and I kind of like that.
Raw 25 devoted an entire segment to thumbing their nose at them. What does that tell you? That they're doing something right.
Yeah, exactly. They've proven they don't need to have a major corporation like the WWE promoting them. They can promote themselves, and they do quite well at it. So, moving right along from there, we have a singles match for the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Championship #1 contendership. Punishment Martinez versus Marty Scurll. That's an interesting clash of styles there. I'll be honest, I really like both guys. That's not the match I would picture in my head, putting those two together, but that might be why it's really good. It's like those two might work really well together.
Yeah, you got literally a very small guy who you don't think of as such because he doesn't work as such, but he is a relatively small guy against a really, really big guy. I've interviewed Punishment Martinez. I think he's just got such a great head for the business. Incredibly talented guy. I think he's got great potential there. But I think Marty Scurll is going to take the win because they have the UK tour coming up real soon, and I think that Marty Scurll, as an Englishman challenging for the World Heavyweight title, would be money in the UK.
Nice throwback to the famous Bryan Danielson versus Nigel McGuinness unification match they did back in 2006.
There you go. See, we know our history.
Yeah, exactly. I actually just rewatched that match not too long ago. It's a great one. It's one of the best matches in ROH history if you want to check it out. Next on the card, we have Cody Rhodes versus Matt Taven, today's guest.
Matt Taven. Matt Taven. No, I said I wasn't going to do that, and I had to do it. Team America, World Police, Matt Damon. I swear, I hear it every time I hear his name, and I don't know. I don't like that I do that because he's such an incredibly talented guy. I've always been high on him ever since I first saw him work. He really, I think, came out of his shell when he was with the Kingdom, with Mike Bennett and Maria Kanellis, and just an incredibly talented performer. And so glad we had him on the show. Regardless the outcome of the match, I think that this is his coming out party. I think that you could argue that he's had a little bit less exposure maybe since the knee injury when Bennett and Maria both left Ring of Honor. Obviously, he recaptured the Kingdom, and he's the king of the Kingdom. But this is really him capturing the singles spotlight again for the first time in a long time. And I think that he's gonna benefit from it regardless of the outcome. With that said, I'm probably going to have to go with Cody probably getting the win simply because he lost the title at the last pay-per-view. He lost at Wrestle Kingdom, so it stands to reason that he needs a big pay-per-view victory.
Especially since he's got a big match coming up at the WrestleMania weekend show. He's going to be facing Kenny Omega in the really, I don't know if that's going to be the closing match, but it's going to be the star attraction that draws people to that show. So I think it would make sense to give Cody a win here and then further set up that match that I am super excited about, and I'm totally going to watch WrestleMania weekend. There's a lot of stuff WrestleMania weekend I'm going to be watching. Even WrestleMania.
Ring of Honor's there. Ring of Honor's there. And WrestleMania is the afterthought. Ring of Honor's going to be there. Lucha Underground against Impact Wrestling. I mean, that's two of our favorites right there. Ring of Honor, another one of our favorites. And, of course, WWE, which will always be king, but I don't think either of us can really say that, like, if we had a choice of any of these other promotions, that WWE would be first on our to-do list.
No, although to their credit, I mean, WWE is giving me personally the match that I'm excited for, AJ versus Nakamura, which they had a match way back at Wrestle Kingdom 10, I believe it was, and that was an awesome match. It's like, all right, to see that match on a WrestleMania stage would be cool. And NXT TakeOver, they're also doing Johnny Gargano versus Tommaso Ciampa. They hasn't been made official yet, but I'm almost certain they're going to do it. And that's like a year-long storyline that they've been doing.
Yeah,
so I really want to see that
as
match.
a non-NXT fan, I think that was really well built. So I'll give you that.
Yeah, so basically what I'm saying is there's a lot of stuff to look forward to WrestleMania weekend. But, yeah, Cody and Taven, I think that could be one of the standout matches on the show.
I'm looking for them to steal the show. You know, we interviewed the guy who's in the main event a few months ago, Jay Lethal, and he said that it was always a challenge for him as champion to not only be the main event but also make people believe that he belonged there, that he was the best match and not one of the undercard matches was the best match. So I think this is one of the cases where the undercard match, if you call it that, it's co-headliner, is going to be pushing him to his limits because I think Taven's going to bring it. This is, like I said, his coming out party, and Cody. Man, Cody is Cody. So what are you gonna say?
He's a star. And I'm so proud of him. He's a guy that, he left the WWE to kind of forge his own path, and I think he's done amazingly well for himself. He had an awesome match with Kota Ibushi at the Tokyo Dome. On any other card, that would have been the match of the night, but that just happened to be a show that had like 6 matches of the night. But, he had a really good run as Ring of Honor champion. He's got this hot program with Omega to look forward to. So Cody's done amazingly well for himself, and I'm proud of him. I think it's really good, the work he's been doing.
Absolutely.
Okay,
right,
next.
And the main event? Or no?
We've got one more match before the main event. Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championship, the Motor City Machine Guns versus the Briscoes, Mark and Jay. Two very reliable teams. They obviously have a rich history with Ring of Honor and the independent scene. And, if you're a TNA fan, you remember the Machine Guns for a lot of the matches they have with Beer Money and the like. So I expect this to be a really good match.
Yeah, and like we said, it's an anniversary show. Probably two of the biggest tag teams that ever worked, Ring of Honor, having a match at the anniversary show, it just makes sense. I think it's going to be a great match. Another one of those matches that I think could be a show stealer. It's going to push the main eventers to really deliver.
And speaking of that, we have the main event for the Ring of Honor World Championship. We've got Dalton Castle defending against Jay Lethal, the man who held the belt for about a year, I believe. He had a really long reign when he was champion. But
he was both champions for a while there, too.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, he was the TV champion, too.
He was like when, remember when Too Cold Scorpio, I don't know if anybody else remembers this, Too Cold Scorpio held like every belt in ECW and he called himself Too Gold Scorpio?
I remember that, yep.
That was awesome stuff.
There was a lot of good stuff back then. I've been watching a lot of old stuff lately, and it's fun to catch up on that stuff.
Reminds you why you love it. That's why I love to watch the old stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I'm predicting that Dalton Castle's going to win because I think that in this match you have Jay Lethal, who's been to the mountaintop. He is the established name of Ring of Honor, in my opinion. He's the guy who's been there the longest at this point, or one of the longest at this point. Established former champion. Dalton Castle, I think this will establish him as a legitimate champion. Not that he needs it, but getting a win over the grizzled veteran would help him here establish himself. And if it went the other way, I'd be cool with that too. Jay Lethal, I mean, he's still having the best matches of his career. Even just the other night, he had one on the ROH TV that was a fantastic match. So always delivers.
I saw him have a match with Ospreay that was amazing. That was a couple weeks ago, I think.
Yeah, that's one of the matches I'm referring to. He still is one of the best in the world. And, you know, from a guy like myself who's a historian, obviously an affinity for the Macho Man Randy Savage, you have that kinship with Jay Lethal because of that. So,
yeah, I could see. I'll pick Dalton to retain, but I could see Lethal winning just because you mentioned the UK tour, and Lethal does have had a feud going with Marty Scurll, and I could see them using that as a title program for the UK tour.
It would draw. It would definitely draw. So the pay-per-view coming up next Friday night. Hope everybody tunes in. ROH 16th anniversary pay-per-view. Should be incredible. Patrick, we're going to get to the interview because that's what everybody tuned in for. But I hope everybody enjoyed us talking a little wrestling, keeping it away from the negative. I tried not to be Mr. Anti-WWE like I used to be. So I hope everybody enjoys this interview. And thanks for joining me, dude, and keeping me on track.
Oh, no problem, dude. No problem. Anytime I'm on the show, it's always a delight. So next time you want to have me, I'd be happy to come on board.
All right, man. Here we go. Well, let's get to Matt Taven here on Interactive Wrestling Radio, courtesy of WrestlingEpicenter.com.
This is the last real man, Silas Young, and you are in the Wrestling Epicenter.
Available now in the archives at interactivewrestlingradio.com. It's our exclusive interview with the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes.
So no, we respect each other in the ring and what we've done, and there's a respect there. And even though if he would say something bad, he kept coming back to that respect thing. People had told me, but there's a respect there. But it's business. Business is business with me and him.
This classic 2005 interview can be heard at WrestlingEpicenter.com and InteractiveWrestlingRadio.com.
Hey guys, this is Jay Lethal, the greatest first-generation wrestler, and you're listening to Interactive Radio.
Throw some metal, show a little skin, looking for some trouble if she can get in. Come with me, I know where to go, I know what you like, I know how you want it. Give it the gate, to the top of the master. She wants more, give it the master.
Welcome back to Interactive Wrestling Radio. On the Newsmaker line with me right now is the leader of the Kingdom from Ring of Honor, who has got a huge, huge match on the 16th anniversary pay-per-view. It, of course, is Matt Taven. Mr. Taven, are you with us?
I am. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic.
All right. So this coming week, we're in the month now of the pay-per-view coming up real soon. In fact, I think it's next Friday night. You got a huge, huge match. You're going to be facing Cody. You guys have kind of been playing the Rochambeau game But you guys, South Park reference, I got to get it in there.
Yeah, no, I like that.
All right, so you guys are going to be having your grudge match, your blow off match here. I'm looking forward to it. Are you looking forward to this match? And I'll get to that in a second. Are you looking forward to your match with Cody?
Of course I am. Of course I am. I mean, people put this guy on a pedestal. For what reason? You know, because of his last name, because he hit the genetic lottery and his dad was someone. I cannot wait to get on pay-per-view, make this guy look like the Melvin he is, and at the end, take the ring, shove it against his face, and let him know who the king is.
Excellent. So yourself, coming back from the injury a few years ago now, it's been a little while, but you've been in there with some huge names. But for me, from my perspective, it just feels like this is really the match where you are reestablishing yourself at the top of that ROH echelon. Do you kind of get that feeling as well?
Well, I mean, I've always thought that I deserve to be there. And, you know, this Kingdom conspiracy thing, it's not just me, you know, putting stuff online and say, I truly believe that. There's a conspiracy against me and the Kingdom in general. I mean, I've won every single title that Ring of Honor has ever had to offer. And in the 5 years that I've been in Ring of Honor, I've had 2 world title shots, 2 of them. One ended with interference from Truth Martini. The other one had interference from Frankie Kazarian. And what has Ring of Honor done about it? Absolutely nothing. And, you know, while they're so consumed with making sure they kiss that ass of the Bullet Club, you know, Ring of Honor is letting guys like myself, you know, fall to the wayside when we, or me especially, deserve to have the shots that someone like Cody Rhodes, who just walks into this company and thinks that he is someone for no reason, you know, is getting. And, you know, it's a shame, and it's a conspiracy, like I said, but live on pay-per-view, I get to embarrass that little bleach blonde Melvin and let everyone know that if Ring of Honor continues to hold me down, then it's obvious that this company has a bias against me, and you know, is obviously pushing this Bullet Club agenda.
Absolutely. And if you look at the main event for the World Heavyweight Championship, you got Jay Lethal and Dalton Castle. You've had your run-ins with Dalton Castle, your matches with him, and of course you had your multitude of matches with Jay Lethal, including a recent one. I guess my question would be, are you looking past Cody if you towards the World Heavyweight Championship match?
No. I'm not looking past Cody, but I'll always have my sights set on the world title. I mean, Jay Lethal's getting a world title shot. It's, you know, a month after or 2 months after I beat him, you know, right in the middle of the ring on Ring of Honor TV. I'm not sure why that title shot isn't for me, but I'm not looking past it, because embarrassing Cody Rhodes is that next step to making sure that people realize that Matt Taven is as good as he says he is. There's a reason why I call myself the King, and Cody Rhodes is just going to be the launching pad that puts me right into that #1 contendership for the world title. I deserve a world title shot even without, you know, beating Cody Rhodes, but to beat the former champion and then move on to the world title, well, you can't ask for a better story than that.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Indeed. So I mentioned your knee injury. It was pretty scary to watch, but I wanted to go back to that and ask you, how has coming back from such a gruesome looking injury when you final battle just a few years ago, and you know you were out for 8-9 months, how hard was it to come back from that injury, and how are you feeling in the ring now?
Oh, well, I'm not gonna lie, you know, there's good days, bad days. Coming back from, you know, multiple knee surgeries on one knee is not just hard on the knee in question, but on the rest of your body. You know, the alignment of your hips and back is all going to be thrown off. My right knee now, it had to pick up the slack for so long that now it's starting to hurt. So it's a balancing act of, you know, going hard in the gym, but knowing at the same time that your knee can only take so much, and you have to take care of it and do the proper maintenance. So it's something I'll probably deal with for the rest of my life, especially the rest of my career. But, you know, at the time, you're not thinking about much else. And we're such, you know, ingrained to be these you know, tough guy wrestlers that I blew my ACL out a minute or two into the match at Final Battle and continued wrestling for the next 10 minutes, even doing stuff like, I might walk up the ropes, springboard elbow with no ACL. And obviously continuing to wrestle was probably a mistake because it ended up leading to rupturing one meniscus that had to be surgically removed from the back of my quad, and tearing the other meniscus at the same time. But, that's what makes us wrestlers, and we love doing this so much that looking back on it, and knowing everything that I know now, I mean, I would have probably been like, Mike, I don't think I could keep going. But if I was in that same situation and, the cards were playing out as they were that night, I probably would keep going, 10 times out of 10. Just because that's the way it's done in wrestling. That's the way I've seen other people. And at the time, I honestly didn't know how severe it was, but it ended up being pretty tough by the end of the night. My first doctor that I saw afterwards said it would be 2.5 years before I wrestled again, which is a pretty scary predicament. But, I'm proud of myself that I can look back on that now, and it all kind of seems like this fuzzy dream, like like that happened, but like, wow, did that really all happen? And 9 months out of my life for this, but here I am back, and it's an accomplishment when you sit down and kind of take the second to look back on it. One that I probably would have rather not have achieved, but at the same time, here I am, and you got to roll with the punches given to you, and I think I've made a pretty good job of coming back from that knee injury.
I would agree with that. I'd like to just go through a couple career highlights with you, and then, of course, we'll go back to the major pay-per-view happening next Friday night, the 16th anniversary pay-per-view. But I apologize for the voice, by the way. I'm just getting over a cold.
No worries.
All right, so my question was going to be your original run with the Kingdom, especially with yourself and Mike Bennett and Maria Kanellis. It almost is more, I don't want to say fondly remembered, but more touched upon, more of a highlight of your career than being the longest reigning ROH television champion in history. It just seemed like you guys clicked so well. What about you guys made that tag team stand out and still be remembered so fondly today?
Well, I think it's just because, we had fun. We had an absolute blast doing it, and we lived in the moment and enjoyed every second of it. And it's kind of what I wanted, the next incarnation of the Kingdom to continue doing. There was a natural chemistry between Mike Bennett, Maria, and myself, because we're all friends outside the ring for years. I mean, man, I've known Mike Bennett almost since day one of being in wrestling. And it's one of those things where it's so natural that you're just out there with your best friends. You know what I mean? Like if you and your buddies are going out and doing something, well, that's the best time you could ask for. And at that point, we were hitting our stride. We were all over the place, and we were just having such a blast doing it that it really kind of came across that way to the audience and to the people on screen. It's one of those things where it's like you look back on your career and there's certain segments of it, and that year of tagging with Mike, winning the IWGP and Ring of Honor Tag Championships, and then kind of all ending with Mike leaving and me blowing out my knee. It was like what a story, you know what I mean? What a way to end that and to really kind of put a conclusion to the end of the story. But it was a great time, and it's just one of those things that's a building block for the future. I was the TV champion and grew there, and then I was the tag champion with Mike and grew a whole heck of a lot there, and really was the kind of genesis of the Matt Taven that you see today.
Again, I would agree with that, and we call ourselves Interactive Wrestling Radio. Part of that used to be that we would have a forum and let people ask questions. I happen to mention to a couple of friends, though. I don't do that anymore because I found people would steal my guests. But I asked a friend mentioned I was going to be interviewing you. His name is Mike Nagel, used to run NoDQ.com. And he asked me to ask you about in NJPW when Luke Gallows and Oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Carl Anderson.
Carl.
When they hit the Magic Killer on Maria, he wanted me to ask you about that. I have no idea why, but he wanted me to ask you about that particular moment.
Well, I mean, I could kind of understand because New Japan, especially at that time, really never had women in the ring. And obviously, like, our feud went from ROH, New Japan, and back and forth. But I can remember our first World Tag League over in New Japan and Maria getting in the ring. And the New Japan officials, when we took it back, were like, oh, no, never Maria back in the ring because they just, obviously it's a different culture, but they don't want the men and women kind of in a combat situation where something might happen. But, Maria was technically the first person in a New Japan, or the first woman in a New Japan ring since Joni Lawler, since China. So it was kind of a big deal that we didn't even realize at the time. And, it kind of morphed into having the mixed side, with Amber Gallows at the time and Maria obviously joining the two teams. And, looking back on it, it's a monumental moment for New Japan because it's the first mixed tag match on a New Japan show and, obviously since China, women competing. And, still something that you don't really see today. So stuff like Carl and Doc hitting the Magic Killer and that being shown on New Japan TV and through Japan itself really made some waves just because you never saw anything like that. So it was definitely a staple. It was definitely something that caught a lot of people's attention, especially in Japan, as part of that rivalry.
Ah, very cool, very cool. All right. So you had that terrible knee injury, but you were also a part of a match where your new member of the Kingdom, TK Orion, suffered that terrible leg injury, and I wanted to kind of just throw this out there. Myself and my wife, we tend to be like these, the grumpy smart marks, and we watch things. But the way you guys handled that and realized that there was a serious injury and handled that and managed to, wrap up the match the way you did, and it seemed relatively seamless. I wanted to first of all praise you for that, and that's kind of going to lead me to my next question. Are you guys still running your the Kingdom Wrestling Academy?
Well, yes, to the latter question, the XWA Wrestling Kingdom, I was just literally there last night. We're down there 3 to 4 times a week in West Warwick, Rhode Island. So if anyone hearing this is interested, you can message me or the XWA. The XWA Wrestling Kingdom has a Facebook page as well. So there's different ways to get a hold of us, but, feel free to come down at any time or reach out to us at any time. But, actually a year ago exactly, I believe it was the 15th anniversary last year, where TK broke his leg, and obviously being in that situation not too long previous to that, you kind of have a better grasp on how to handle it. I saw TK's leg, and I looked down, and I'm not sure if it picks up on camera, but I kind of screamed like, "You all right?" And he did. Knowing the situation from being there myself and Mike asking me if I was all right when I blew out my knee, in that time and in that shock and panic that you're going through, you're never able to really answer that question correctly. Because I think I just stared at Mike and maybe mumbled yes, which was a total lie. And TK he grabbed his leg and kind of screamed, groaned in pain, but I saw his leg kind of floating in the wind there. And so I instantly knew that he wasn't okay. And, had to do what I had to do to make sure that, A, I didn't put him in any more danger, and B, we got out of there in a reasonable fashion and also continue with the story that we were developing. But unfortunately, that's something that just comes with experience in those situations. I guess I, would probably rather not have that experience of being in an injury situation, but, I do. So we were able to kind of do what's right especially for TK, which was, make sure we get him medical attention as soon as possible. Unfortunately for TK, the Vegas area, especially the Sunrise Hospital in Vegas, is not the best medical facility. We had to basically hold his leg together with tape and glue and our own bare hands until we got him on a plane back to Boston where they could actually fix him up correctly.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad he's doing okay now too. So that's good
No,
luck for him.
definitely. He's back.
All right. So you might have a bit of a strange reaction to this question, given the fact that your friends are working there. But when I watch WWE NXT, and this question was something that me and my buddy Patrick had discussed, it seems like that's almost like their version now of Ring of Honor. Like they've borrowed so much of it that it almost feels like WWE doing Ring of Honor. As
That's exactly
a
what it is.
longtime, I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
As a longtime Ring of Honor guy, do you feel that way?
I couldn't agree anymore. I mean, you look at the fact that, our touring schedule and their touring schedule has started to kind of cross paths, and then maybe they'll hit a market like a week before us. That's all on purpose. Taking talent from Ring of Honor, that's all on purpose. I basically look at NXT like ROH Light, but I hope that all the guys there do great. Especially, my buddies there. I wish for every wrestling company to be as successful as possible, because that just helps everyone in general. But, there's obviously something that Ring of Honor is doing right if the top dog in the country is trying to hurt them. And that's exactly what they've tried to do a couple times, which is just makes us know that we're doing the right thing. And, Ring of Honor has been resilient since I've been there. I mean, my first dark match was in 2009. So, and I kind of was there more consistently doing underneath stuff in 2012. But in those, wow, I feel old saying this, in those 9 years that I've kind of been around the company in general, man, I've seen them come and go. And I've seen so many guys be there and then go up to WWE. And then guess what? Ring of Honor has continued to grow and get bigger houses, get more attention, reach out to a broader audience. So, as much as I wish everyone the best and all my buds the best, it definitely shows that Ring of Honor is doing something right since WWE's trying to bite their style so much.
I would agree with that. And I wanted to ask you, I do a lot of these Impact Wrestling conference calls that they do, and something that a lot of the Impact guys have mentioned is that they want to see Impact work with Ring of Honor. They want to see Ring of Honor and NJPW work with Impact and Pro Wrestling Noah and AAA work with CMLL and all this kind of things, because they feel like it's almost like WWE and then everybody else. And as a guy from the other side of the fence working for Ring of Honor, do you kind of echo those sentiments?
I've really never thought too much about it. Obviously TNA had to do a little bit of a rebuilding recently, and they seem like they're getting back on their feet. I'm very happy for them. A lot of my buddies are there as well, and I obviously want to see all those guys succeed as well. But it seems like one of those things where it's like, New Japan, CMLL, and Ring of Honor have this partnership, this little triangle around the world that's working out really well. And if you're trying to, get back on your feet, obviously you would want to be a part of that. It's always smart to kind of jump on the hot bandwagon. And so, and this is obviously the first time I'm really hearing this. For TNA to want to work with us, I think it would be a smart move for them to get back on their feet. But in reality, I don't know if it would be the best business decision for Ring of Honor, considering that they're on this, upward trend. And they're doing it already pretty well as it is without, any help from another. And I know they're Canadian-based now, but really, another United States company. So I, to be honest, I really don't see that partnership ever coming to fruition. But, you never say never in wrestling. But I hope the best for Impact. It's really cool to kind of see them kind of rebuild, but also get back on their feet. And they feel like, it seems like they got like a sturdy footing and a nice office there now, and guys that really want to succeed. And again, that just helps the wrestling business. I hope TNA does fantastic things, and it just helps everyone across the board.
Very cool. So I never said this out loud before, but I remember talking to Rob Feinstein on the phone in 2003 or 2002, actually, about a videotape. And he was like trying to sell me tickets, and I live across country to the first Ring of Honor show. He's like, "You got to come. It's going to be great. You got to come. It's got to be great." And I look at what I see on TV now, and especially that Nashville TV taping where it just seemed like everything was perfect for the audience. It just, the audience was white hot, and the action was great. It just seemed like a great TV show, but it's a completely different company than it was 16 years ago. What does this 16-year anniversary mean to you as a guy who, we've already kind of mentioned it, but has been there off and on for 9 years now?
I mean, it means the world to me just to see the growth of the company and to be a real cornerstone of it, especially for the last 5 years. It's a sense of pride and, you know, a badge of honor, and it's like kind of that us against the world mentality. And as we continue to grow and continue to succeed and move in the direction that we want to, you feel that sense of accomplishment, but you don't really realize it at the time until you sit down and look back. And, you know, friends of mine, actually the girl that, you know, my girlfriend at the moment, said the other day to me that really kind of put things in perspective for me. She was like, "Oh, you know, when we started dating, you were having like your first pay-per-view for Ring of Honor." And that was, you know, 2014-ish, and it's just like, it's one of those things you're like, wow, I didn't even think of that. Like, you know, we were on iPay-per before then, and then here's a pay-per-view, and now we're going into, you know, New Orleans, and already like 5,000 tickets have been sold, and, you know, like you said, that Nashville taping, and it's just, it keeps growing and growing and growing, and all these speed bumps that people think is going to kind of maybe put a little bit of a deterrent on that growth has not stopped us at all. And so you really got a sense of pride, but obviously we're motivated for so much more. You know, we want to be on that level where, you know, we're as big as stars as anyone else in the wrestling world. And until we're there, we're not going to be satisfied. But at the same time, I'm sure I can't appreciate it as much as I should right now. But I guess, you know, whenever the day of my career ends, I sit down and kind of look back at where we started to where we went to with Ring of Honor. I think I'll be extremely proud. My first anniversary show was the 11th anniversary, I believe, was me and Cole. And, you know, to think about how many people probably saw that match in comparison to how many people will see me and Cody, it's something to really be proud of. But our job's not done yet, not by a long shot.
Absolutely. All right, so final conversation here about your big match at the pay-per-view. It's you yourself against Cody. I think you guys are probably going to be in one of those money spots right before the world title shot. Thoughts on the possibility of you guys stealing the show?
Oh, we will. I mean, it's not even a thought to it. It's the best thing that's been going in Ring of Honor. Obviously, the part of it, and like I said, I'm making sure everyone sees the greatness of Matt Taven. And if that means, you know, going in there with Cody and making a statement, well, that's exactly what my game plan is. So if you're, you know, on the fence of ordering this pay-per-view or not, you're going to regret it if you don't. I guarantee you that. So we're all coming out, every single one of us are coming out to steal the show, but, you know, there's going to be one guy that does that, and you're talking to him.
Well, before I let you go, can I ask for one last favor from you?
Of course.
Can I just ask for a radio liner saying this is Matt Taven and you're in the wrestling epicenter?
All right. This is the king of the kingdom, Matt Taven, and don't be a Melvin and get into the wrestling epicenter.
That's awesome. Thank you. Just so you know, I don't know if you know this, but out here in Arizona, there is a like a home repair company. And their big line is always, there will be no Melvins on your job. So,
no way, really?
There is, yeah. If you ever Google it, I can't remember what it's called, but there's no Melvins on your job. And me and my wife always say, well, what if some guy applies for a job there named Melvin?
You don't know how many tweets I get over like, hey, this guy's named Melvin, or, you know, this is Melvin. It happens a lot, but, you know, that's an unfortunate name to have right now.
The The Wrestling Epicenter has been around since 2002, and in that time, all these guests, everybody pictured, has been on our podcast. We're more than just a radio show, though, so check out WrestlingEpicenter.com for all your wrestling news and needs.